What is going on, everybody? I hope everybody is doing well. Got a little bit of a fun video, not a fun video, but a different video. Football season's still in the swing of it, but we're going to start to transition a little bit to baseball here. Now, we'll be coming back to football. I'm going to talk, playoffs. We'll have some videos up. We'll still do the videos with the blind ranking, all that fun stuff. But I am going to start to transition a little bit into baseball coming up on spring training, and we're only a couple months away, about 3 months away from the season starting. We're still going to talk Seahawks draft. We'll have mock drafts up here. We're going to dive into that. But if you're a Mariners fan, I think you're going to like this video. We're going to dive a little bit into the offseason they've had, as you've seen by the title, and why, believe it or not, I know it's sacrilegious to say it, and you can't utter these words, the Mariners have had a good offseason. I know. They've missed out on some guys, so therefore they are the worst organization ever. It is a disappointing offseason, and how dare anybody be excited for the offseason because they didn't sign every big name player to a major contract. Let's start there. Obviously, a lot of Mariners fans, and I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of Mariners fans have been disappointed, and rightfully so, with some of the misses in free agency. Whether it's been going after a shortstop to upgrade from J.P. Crawford, or just some of the big names in general that could upgrade this roster. There was talk about Xander Bogaerts, Trey Turner, last year a little bit with some of the names, Trevor Story, Chris Bryant, and there's been some frustration with the ownership, maybe, and Jerry DiPoto for not putting out more money and getting some of these guys in here. I get it. I do. I'm not here to necessarily defend Mariners ownership. It's not my favorite group in the world. So I'm not trying to, shill for them and be like, oh, they're beautiful, embrace them and everything like that. But I think it's kind of interesting that, I remember back in the day when you had Dave Cameron at USS Mariner, Jeff Sullivan in Lookout Landing, and they would talk about the need to avoid those big free agent contracts. The goal was to get young players under long-term deals. Now, there were some free agent contracts that were good. It wasn't that they were all bad, but that, my light went down there, that just spending money isn't the way to go. And that's kind of where I am now. Like, you look at some of these guys, and Trevor Story wasn't terrible last year, but do you want him for 6 or 7 years on the Mariners? I don't think that contract's going to look very good in a few years. And by all accounts, the Mariners did offer Trevor Story a deal, and he turned it down and went to Boston. The Chris Bryant deal, I mean, you couldn't pay the Rockies to get rid of Chris Bryant. They would have to eat his whole contract. Even then, I think teams would be like, on taking him. I didn't even get a home run last year. So the Mariners avoided that mess. I would argue the contract Xander Bogaerts got isn't something you really want to be attached to. Is a 12, 13-year deal for Bogaerts, who's a really good player. Do I think Bogaerts is better than J.P. Crawford? Of course. But you do have to look at your own players. And I know, it's hard to envision it. This is the excuse Jerry DiPoto's been given, or the reasoning. I don't think it's an excuse. That's probably how some fans view it. But they did lock up Julio Rodriguez last year. You're going to want in a few years them to get George Kirby locked up, Logan Gilbert, Cal Raleigh. If he develops and takes off, Jared Kelenic. You're going to want these guys to be signed. If you have Trevor Story on the books and Xander Bogaerts, you're going to have to say goodbye to a couple of those guys. You can't bring them all in. And you're going to have to say goodbye to those guys when Trevor Story and Xander Bogaerts are in year 4 of contracts that are now looking iffy. A lot of the prominent Mariner people on Twitter have sort of defended the Robinson Cano deal and saying, see, he was good for a few years. That contract didn't hinder the Mariners. Well, the only reason it didn't is because, thank God, Brody Van Wagenen, his former agent, took him in New York in the Edwin Diaz deal and ate a chunk of that contract. If it weren't for that, Robinson Cano would absolutely be an albatross for the Mariners. He'd still be on the roster today, sucking up 15, 20, $30 million right now. And you'd be left with someone that can't play the field and can't hit, just either sitting on your bench, and you're struggling to get the Julio deal done and the Luis Castillo deal done because you've got Robinson Cano's bum ass sitting on the bench. Yeah, Cano was really good. 14, 15, 16, 17. They got 4 really good years out of Cano. The other thing is, too, these guys don't guarantee you World Series wins. I don't think that, sure, I'm all for making moves, but the notion that these guys are the ones that are putting you over the top, I don't think it is. They're going to put the team over the top maybe as much as people think they do, as opposed to getting the young guys locked up and still making some deals here and there. So again, would I've been okay with the Mariners going in on Carlos Correa or Bogarts or Trey Turner? Yeah, I would have been. That would have been a nice upgrade. I would have been excited about it. I would have been. So I'm not saying that fans' frustration isn't valid, but I think if you take a step back, it's not a big a deal as you think. And they have spent money. They signed Robbie Ray last year. Robbie Ray's agent reached out to Mariners. Whatever, doesn't matter. They got a top-of-the-line pitcher in their rotation. They traded for and signed Luis Castillo to a long-term deal. Had they just signed Luis Castillo without the trade, we'd be jumping for joy. Because they got him last year, we don't view that extension as, as big because he was already on the team. But it's still money, and it's still an extension they signed him to. They've locked up Julio Rodriguez until, I'm probably off this earth. You know what I mean? So they have made moves and locked up players. They have done some things. It just might not be exactly all of what we've wanted them to do, but they have had a really good offseason. And it's not just certain moves. People look at it and go, well, Colton Wong, Teoscar Hernandez, and AJ Pollock. It's more than that. And I'm going to dive into all of that right here and why the Mariners have had a good offseason overall. Let's start with AJ Pollock in left field. Now, couple caveats here. The offseason isn't over, number one. So there's still moves that can be made. Number two, the Mariners do have some holes, and we'll look into it a little bit with DH, right field, if they want to DH Teoscar Hernandez or have him in right field. Not sure what they want to do. You have a hole in right field possibly. Now, they do have some internal options. You could just stick AJ Pollock in there. You could have Taylor Trammell. You could have some sort of platoon there. Dylan Moore's a guy that can play every position, so you can move him from the infield to the outfield. Or if you have Teoscar Hernandez in right field, you have a little bit of a gap at DH. Now, you do have Evan White, who I think could be a factor this year. Remember, this is the 2020 Gold Glove Award winner. Now, the Gold Glove doesn't do anything for DH, but was a top prospect, was someone that the team thought very highly of to give him a 6-year deal back in 2020 or 2019. So you have him. He could factor into the DH with Ty France, first base DH. Dylan Moore can hit lefties. He could factor into the DH role. For days off, you have Julio, all the guys in the outfield. Suarez can DH on off days. Tom Murphy mashes left-handed pitching. He could DH. Cal Raleigh can DH on some off days. I know they like Cooper Hummel, who they got from the Diamondbacks and the Kyle Lewis deal. So you do have some options, but I think we'd all agree we wouldn't mind them getting another body into the right field or DH slot, depending on what they want to do with Teoscar Hernandez. So the first move the team made was AJ Pollock. And right now, as it stands, it looks like AJ Pollock will probably platoon with Jared Kelenic in left field. That would be my guess is what they want to do. I'm going to assume for the video you have Teoscar Hernandez in right and obviously Julio Rodriguez in center. So let's look at some of the numbers here. And remember, it's important to look at what they're replacing as well. Okay, let's start with that. They're replacing Jesse Winker in left field. I think Jesse Winker is a bounce back candidate. I think he might have a pretty solid season in Milwaukee this year. However, that's not what the Mariners are trying to upgrade from. They need to upgrade from last year and what Jesse Winker gave them. And what he gave them last year was not good. A slash line of .219 batting average, .344 on base percentage, which actually isn't too bad, and a .344 slugging percentage, which is really bad. For a .688 OPS with terrible left field defense, which equates to a negative .3 WAR, wins above replacement level. Jesse Winker was bad last year. He was a bad player. Now, you have AJ Pollock and Jared Kelenic likely entering a platoon. Let's, number one, start off with the fact, let's see if I can adjust this, maybe just turn this down a notch. There we go. Start with the fact that you're already having a defensive upgrade. Even if Kelenic and Pollock don't accumulate a single hit this year, you are going to be better defensively in the outfield with that platoon. That's a guarantee. Kelenic was a really good defensive outfielder. Pollock's not bad either. So let's look at AJ Pollock, who's mainly going to hit against left-handed pitching. Now, last year, he mashed left-handed pitching to the tune of a .935 OPS, .286 average, .316 OBP, .619 slugging. Now, those are all above his career averages. I don't expect this light, I feel like, is going in and out like crazy. He's probably not going to keep that up throughout the entire season. That was like his best year against lefties. But he is someone that mashes left-handed pitching. Now, against righties, he struggled last year with a .593 OPS. But while I think that his lefties was like insanely probably better than he's going to do, he should hit better against righties as well. And when you have a platoon, guys are going to get exposed to the same-handed pitchers. Jared Kelenick's going to have to face some lefties. AJ Pollock is going to have to face some right-handed pitchers. It's just how it is. That's why any manager, GM, would prefer to just have one guy. So you don't have to, you can avoid the platoon disadvantages that are going to happen. But overall, I see AJ Pollock as someone that's coming off the season mashing left-handed pitching. It's something he's done in his career. And you have Dylan Moore that can slide in there as well and play. Dylan Moore had a 796 OPS against lefties last year. So you have a left fielder that should be able to handle left-handed pitching. And it's all about power with AJ Pollock. He's not just relying on home runs, which is good for Seattle's ballpark. Jared Kelenic. Now, I know there's been a lot of what-ifs and whatnot. I am going to look at a small sample here of what he did September against righties. And I think this is where the Mariners are looking at him to continue on to next year and probably begin him as a platoon player as opposed to beginning him in AAA. In 28 plate appearances in September, he had a 17.9 walk ratio, which is fantastic, a slash line of 217 batting average, 357 OBP, 522 slugging for an 879 OPS, with a batting average on balls in play of 188, which is very low. So that means on balls he put in play, his batting average, his BABIP was 188. Home runs don't count. They're over the fence. So if you look at that, Jared Kelenic against righties, at the very least, showed in September. Now, again, small sample. Overall wasn't great. But this is after he's down in the minor leagues for a while. Came back up. Talked about some of the approaches and stance changes he made. He mashed right-handed pitching in September, October. Now, maybe Kelenic comes on and hits lefties as well. Great. Then, AJ Paul can take a bench role. But you should have, with those platoons, if Kelenic can, build on that September, October, and what AJ Pollock has done, I don't expect him to OPS 935 against lefties, but can build on what he's done in his career, you should have a player that is going to do no worse than Jesse Winker. Winker was a net negative. Now you might say, well, Jay, Winker's going to do better this year in Milwaukee. That's fine, but this isn't about what I think Winker's going to do. I think Winker's a bounce-back candidate, as I said. But this is how the Mariners can get better from a 90 and 72 win wildcard team to this year. And yes, the Jared Kelenic, AJ Pollock platoon should be an upgrade over Jesse Winker in left field. Backup catcher is another spot where the Mariners should see a massive upgrade. They didn't have to make a move to do this, but getting Tom Murphy healthy should be a huge improvement for them. Murphy's career, again, we know Cal Raleigh mashes right-handed pitching. That's his strength. He can hit lefties too, but he's better, more power from the left side of the plate against righties. Well, that's great because the other catcher, Tom Murphy, mashes left-handed pitching. 749 career OPS and an 749 career OPS overall, 837 career OPS against left-handed pitching. I'm not going to mention Murphy's numbers last year. It was 33 plate appearances, but they were fantastic. Over last year, Luis Torrens, who OPS like 600. Now Torrens is a career 728 OPS hitter against lefties. So you're already getting a massive improvement. And Murphy's a much better defensive catcher than Luis Torrens. So a team that got pretty much nothing from Torrens and Kirk Casale last year when he came over should get a big upgrade if they can get a healthy Tom Murphy, who can even DH against left-handed pitching. So just getting the Murph back should be a huge improvement for this team, giving them two legitimate catchers on the roster. Another move the Mariners made is they acquired Colton Wong from the Milwaukee Brewers. That was for Jesse Winker, again, who I think is going to have a bounce-back year, and Abraham Toro, who, God bless him, but I could care less about losing Abraham Toro. Colton Wong is replacing Adam Frazier. If we go last year, Adam Frazier slashed 238, 301, 311 for 612 OPS and .9 WAR. Frazier was not very good. He had some nice postseason moments. I'll never forget him for the big hit that won the Toronto game. He has a place in my heart, but he was not good last year. Now, we expected him to be better. We expected him to probably put up the numbers that Colton Wong put up, and that was 251, 339, 430 for a 770 OPS from Colton Wong last season. Now, Colton Wong also had an OPS of 845 against right-handed pitching last year. Adam Frazier's OPS against righties was 624. Wong does not hit lefties very well, neither does Adam Frazier. But, ta-da! We have great news. Dylan Moore is a potential platoon partner that can play second base. Moore has a career OPS against lefties, OPS against lefties last year, of 796. So you do risk the exposure of Wong against lefties if you just want to strictly platoon with Dylan Moore. Now, again, just like I said with Kelenic and Pollock, Wong is going to have at-bats against lefties. It's going to happen. Dylan Moore is going to have at-bats against righties. The player is always better than the platoon, like one player, because, again, you avoid the platoon disadvantage, essentially, of having to face the same-handed hitters. So, yeah, of course, like, it would be great if Wong mashed lefties, but Adam Frazier didn't do that either. You should have a marked improvement from Wong, who had a 3.1 WAR last year, versus Adam Frazier's .9 WAR a year ago. And to platoon with Dylan Moore. Now, again, this is where they might have to make another move right field DH, because you've got Dylan Moore kind of going all over the place right now. But if the goal is to have him platoon at second base with Colton Wong, you should be looking at a fantastic platoon combo at second base. Dylan Moore is worth 1.5 WAR last year, I think. Let me double check that. I've got my pad right here. I don't want to get numbers wrong here. Dylan Moore last year was worth 1.4. Did I say 1.4, 1.5? Combine that with Colton Wong, and you're looking at a possible, I can't do math, 4.5 WAR. Now, it probably won't be that much, because one might get, more at-bats and everything like that, but you're looking at potentially 4 WAR from your second base. Dylan Moore can also platoon with J.P. Crawford at shortstop. I know they didn't make the upgrade there, but, he can also take some at-bats from J.P. in certain instances as well. Another move the team made was acquiring Teoscar Hernandez from the Blue Jays to take the right field spot. Again, we're assuming they could DH him and make another move in right field. The offseason isn't over. So that's good news, too. The Mariners, you can't really get worse. So, if they do make a move, if they do go out and get Brian Reynolds, something like that, then great, and Teoscar Hernandez can DH. But right now, we're going to look him in right field replacing Mitch Haniger. I was surprised to find Haniger actually was worth 1.3 WAR last year in his limited at-bats. So, that was good to see. And I love Mitch Haniger, but missed a ton of time last year. And when he came back, he had a really good start to the year. I never thought he got his timing down after coming back from the injury. He had some big moments. He had like that 2-home run game against Texas when the Mariners were on the verge of clinching. But overall, Mitch Haniger had a 246, 308, 429 slash line for a 736 OPS last year. Not terrible. And then again, that's in limited time. Teoscar Hernandez, 267, 316, 491 for an 807 OPS. So again, Mitch Haniger this year, I don't know who's going to be better between Mitch Haniger and Teoscar Hernandez. But Teoscar Hernandez numbers should be a substantial upgrade over what Mitch Haniger gave you. Haniger's was 1.3 WAR last year. Teoscar's worth 2.8 WAR last year. So you should see a substantial upgrade in right field. So all the moves this team has made should greatly benefit them. We talked about the A.J. Pollock move should be a big upgrade. Getting Tom Murphy back is huge. Colton Wong should be a big upgrade, and so should Teoscar Hernandez. That's not the only moves, guys. That's the other thing people are forgetting. Let's talk about Julio Rodriguez. People forget that in April going into May last year, Julio was bad. Not bad to the extent, we all knew he was going to take his lumps, But there was some talk about him going back down. Does he need to go back down to the minors? Refine from some of these skills. He was striking out a ton. A lot of them were on BS called third strikes. We all remember that. But nonetheless, he was striking out a ton in April, May. Now, he still had some high strikeout numbers, but he turned it around and went on to be, the rookie of the year and had a fantastic season. I think we all expect Julio to, one, not have that April and early May swoon or fall or struggle. So he can come out of the gate playing better. And we expect Julio to take that next step forward from being a stud rookie of the year to being a potential best player in baseball. I'm biased, but I'll let it be known Julio is my pick for AL MVP this coming season. I don't think it's crazy. There is potential for Julio Rodriguez to be the best player in baseball. Not claiming he is right now, but it would not be crazy if we end next year and go, Julio's top 5. Right now, where would you put him? I think you'd put him top 10, 15. I'm not sure. I'd have to go through every pick. I remember Fangraphs used to do their top 50 trade value players, and Dave Cameron did it and some other guys, and they'd rate all the players who would be the number one trade value player in baseball. It has to be Julio Rodriguez. Julio Rodriguez, by many people, is probably the most coveted player right now in baseball. He's proven it this season. There's no reason he can't take that next step forward this year. And I want to say one more caveat. everything could fall flat on their face. You can say, well, Colton Wong might suck. Maybe Julio doesn't take a step forward. Maybe Jared Kelenic sucks. Sure, Luis Castillo could be trash this year. The bullpen could implode. All these guys could get hurt. Like, I don't know. Obviously, there's always the chance that this doesn't work out. None of this is to say it's guaranteed, but I just want to point out to people that have had a very negative mindset with this offseason or have felt it's been negative because other people have told them that it has not been a bad offseason for the Mariners. So we talked about Julio. Let's talk about the fact that, I don't know, their ace pitcher is going to make 34, is expected to make 34 starts this year for the Mariners. Castillo made, I think, 11 or 12 starts. We're talking about Luis Castillo. 11 or 12 starts last year with the Mariners after coming over for a trade. They now have a full season of Luis Castillo as their number one pitcher. So not only do you have someone who, I mean, one of the biggest impact trades at the deadline last year, now on your team for the whole season, should also help Robbie Ray, take the pressure off him, having be the number one pitcher. Logan Gilbert now has a full year of experience under his belt. People forget that George Kirby was not up last year to start the season. He came up after Matt Brash struggled in the rotation. And if it had not been for Julio last year and his ridiculous season, George Kirby might have been the rookie of the year in the American League. There's a guy at 133 strikeouts in 130 innings, a 3.39 ERA. Strikeout to walk ratio, I'll pull it up here, of 133 to 22 on the season. A FIP, fielding independent pitching, of 2.99. Like, this is one of the best young pitchers in baseball. I think sometimes we forget how dominant he was in that Game 3 against Houston because, one, how long the game went, and the fact that it ended the Mariners season. This is easily someone that, it's not crazy, could be in a Cy Young conversation. That's how good George Kirby is. This is one of the best young pitchers in baseball. And the Mariners have some rotation depth. I keep seeing that criticized by people. This team doesn't have any depth. They actually do have some rotation depth. You've got, let me pull up here real quick. You've obviously got the four I mentioned. You've got Marco Gonzalez. You still have Chris Flexen. And maybe they make a trade there and one of those guys is gone. Now, do I think Marco is amazing? No. Do I think Flexen's amazing? No. But as your fifth starters and as your long guy who's a sixth starter and a swing man, yeah, that's pretty good. Marco Gonzalez is more than capable of giving you the 6-inning, 2-3 earned run starts that you need at the back end of rotation. So is Chris Flexen. You got guys like Emerson Hancock that are knocking on the door to get into the big leagues for the Mariners as well, who could be up this year. So, yeah, you do actually have some decent depth. That's the other thing I keep people here saying, well, the Mariners are a Julio injury and a Castillo injury away from being trash. Okay, yeah, most teams are their best hitter and best pitcher being knocked out away from struggling. Now, do I think the teams like the Astros, who the Mariners chasing, have a little bit more roster depth top to bottom? I do. I do think they're still a little bit more well-rounded than the Mariners. But honestly, the Mariners have some decent depth. They lost Julio for points last year. He struggled in the early part of the season. He had, I forgot it was the wrist injury after the All-Star break where he missed a handful of games. And then he got hit again in Houston and went on the injured list in the final month of the season and missed time. And the Mariners were okay. Remember, Ty France got hurt. And my kids are yelling. Every video I feel like my kids are yelling or something. Hope everything's okay. But Ty France, remember, missed a chunk of the season. When he got hit, I forgot who it was, Sheldon Noisy from the A's when he was running across first base. And he missed a huge chunk of the season. Huge. Kids are yelling, my mind's gone blank. But he missed a decent chunk of it. He missed a while. He was on the IL for a little bit and missed some time. Did not miss a decent chunk of the season, but he was out for a while. And the team survived. Like, yeah, a major injury to Julio and Luis Castillo that end their seasons, yeah, that would be absolutely devastating. It would be devastating to any team to lose their best player. So the notion that, like, oh, this team has no depth and injuries are like, yeah, that's why Julio's starting over Taylor Trammell. He's better. But could Taylor Trammell come in there for 10 days and hold his own? Sure. Does Luis Castillo needed to make this team good? Yes. But if he has to miss 3-4 starts and Chris Flexen has to start, they would be okay. They can survive that for a little bit. This team does have some decent depth in place. So, yeah, we talked about the upgrades this team has made, and it's not just the free agents and the trades. It's banking on Julio taking another step. Hopefully Jared Kelenic can as well. A full season of Luis Castillo. A full season of the big dumper. Remember, Dumper was Cal Raleigh was up in the beginning of the year with the team. Then he went down, and then he didn't come back till early June, I think, when Tom Murphy went out for the year. And then he took off and really took that starting role and ran with it. You have a full year now of Cal Raleigh, a full offseason of him having worked with all those pitchers and them, how they praised his leadership roles. Let's see where Cal Raleigh ended last year in terms of WAR and everything for the Mariners. Big dumper, let's see. Yeah, 3.8 WAR last year for Cal Raleigh. So, I mean, a tremendous season. Again, that's pretty much from June 1st on. In fact, that might even be more because he might have been a negative when he went down. So, you now have a full season of him. Now, again, like I said, all these guys could fall flat in their face. But, I mean, then every team should have the video talking about how their team could fall flat in their face. The idea is that not only have you added some upgrades in some black holes, which was second base last year, essentially, you've upgraded. Left field, we can say, I know Jesse Winker was popular with the stupid middle finger and pizza thing, which I'm sorry, I just didn't think that was that great. I'm glad he defended his team and everything. I can say it now that it's happened, but okay, please hit and help the team win. That's my bigger concern. And I had some fun moments with the team and everything like that. But the guy was worth negative WAR last year. He was bad for this team. AJ Pollock and Jared Kelenic alone, just defensively, are going to give you a massive upgrade over Jesse Winker. Mitch Haniger was not healthy last year. Teoscar Hernandez will be an upgrade over what he gave them last year. There's still some, like I said, some questions at DH. They've lost Carlos Santana. So they do have maybe, some finagling to still do, but the offseason isn't over. So we'll be here if they make another move. I cannot wait for baseball season. Like I said, if you're a fan, please hit that subscribe button. If you've made it all the way in the video, thank you. Like I said, hit that thumbs up button. We are going to have all sorts of Mariners content and hopefully live streams daily that I'm going to have for this team. It's going to be pretty epic here for baseball season. So that's my video. Just want you guys to know, don't buy into this. This was a terrible, awful offseason for the team. You can wish they did more. I do too. But they have done a lot to improve an already 90-win team. The hardest thing to do is to go from 90 to 100. If the team had 55 wins, yeah, they could make all sorts of moves. But now the goal is taking that next step. And they've done a lot of things in here that aren't really seen that should be a big upgrade for them. I'll also mention one more thing I forgot to mention is the reliever, Trevor Gott, that they got from Milwaukee, who I think could be a sneaky good addition to the bullpen as well. Bullpens are hard to predict. They're always up in the air. You never know what you're going to get with bullpens, but the bullpen should be in pretty good shape. You have Andres Munoz, Matt Brash, Paul Sewell, Daniel Castillo, Trevor Gott, Penn Murphy, Matt Festa, and there's probably a couple other minor league guys will come up and surprise us. So could the bullpen implode? Sure, bullpens do that from time to time. They're really hard to predict, but the talent is there for this bullpen to be pretty good for the Mariners. So they should be in good shape there. Hit that subscribe button and let me know if you want to keep talking Mariners. I'm always here to talk, and hit that sub button. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.